As the Chicago Bears look ahead to free agency and the NFL draft, Ryan Poles is going to have to put aside some money to hand out new extensions to players already under contract.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the show today, we look at some of the players eligible for contract extensions this offseason, why Ryan Poles should hurry to pay Kyler Gordon, get that deal done, lock him in for the long term. Well, maybe you want to wait a little bit on Jaquan Brisker, see how this year plays out for those two on the back end. Then I want to look at the Bears' linebacking core, where I'm ready to give TJ Edwards a contract extension, but at the same time, 2025 could end up being the last year of having both Tremaine Edmunds and TJ Edwards as your Bears starting linebackers. And then I want to look at a couple of guys that are entering the last year of their contracts that are interesting studies here, where it's like in the middle, I could understand maybe giving them a deal, but maybe also wanting to wait with guys like Braxton Jones at left tackle or Andrew Billings at nose tackle. They're kind of interesting cases that I want to go a little bit more in depth. It's not so immediately obvious right at the top. You say, well, why would they give him a deal, or why wouldn't they give him a deal? Well, we'll talk through that a little bit later on. But I think the big obvious move the Bears need to do, and I would say sooner rather than later, is give Kyler Gordon a contract extension. We've seen a rise in how important the slot cornerback position has been in the NFL. Kyler Gordon has been great. Certainly a very strong draft pick who is good on the outside and seems to have gotten even better on the inside, developed very, very well. And even in the Super Bowl, right, you see someone like Cooper DeJean come in for the Philadelphia Eagles and has a pick six. That slot role is absolutely huge. And Kyler Gordon has been great at it for a while now. He's been great at everything he's done, but especially this past season, he really kind of came into his own. In the last couple of years, it's felt like, man, he has made his mark as someone who's physical in the running game, someone they blitz off of the edge quite a bit, very reliable in coverage. Like, no one's out here to say Kyler Gordon is the best cornerback in football. He might not even be the best slot cornerback in football, but he's very good and he's reliable. He's been on the field consistently. Yeah, he gets nicked and bruised and banged up here and there, but it's not like major injuries have caused him to miss significant amounts of time. It's been more like, a handful of games here and there. Rookie season, he plays 14. Last year, or I guess 2 years ago now, played 13, and this past season played in 15. Like, yeah, you'd like to see a little bit more durability there, but not drastic there. Not the same kind of durability question marks we had about like Jalen Johnson, who had missed some time. And also an easier question when the amount of money someone like Kyler Gordon will command is significantly less than what Jalen Johnson got. And that's perhaps the biggest key in all of this, is how much slot cornerbacks like Kyler Gordon are paid so much less than outside cornerbacks. So lock them up while they're still cheap. You might remember with the Jalen Johnson contract negotiations, right? It's like, okay, do you make him the highest paid cornerback in football, or how do you sort of navigate what you want to do that? I think the contract they ended up giving Jalen Johnson averaged about $19 million per year, which is a lot to pay to a corner. And you might say, okay, well then, can they afford to also give a big contract to Kyler Gordon? Well, Kyler Gordon's contract might be half that, even being one of the most highest paid slot cornerbacks in football, because over the last couple of off seasons, we've seen other slot cornerbacks get big contract extensions. I think there are two slot cornerbacks, and specifically like cornerbacks who only play the slot, because I want to be specific about the wording here, because there are some corners who play outside and then also kick into the slot sometimes, like Marlon Humphrey from the Ravens, I think is the highest paid cornerback who sometimes plays in the slot. But when we're talking about full-time number 3 cornerback on the inside, not really playing on the outside. Michael Carter III from the New York Jets. Actually, it might be Mike Carter II. I may have given him an extra generation there. Michael Carter from the Jets and Taron Johnson from the Bills are the two highest paid slot cornerbacks in the NFL, and their contracts each pay them $10.25 million per year. Kenny Moore was previously the highest paid slot cornerback in football for the Indianapolis Colts at $10 million a year. That, to me, feels like the number you're aiming for with Kyler Gordon. Do you give him 3 years, $30 million, 4 years, $40 million, 5 years, $50 million, whatever you want to do. But, can you get him right around that $10 million a year number? That really feels like a steal compared to the $19 million you're paying Jalen Johnson. Or, if you look at the other highest paid cornerbacks in football, Patrick Surtain's deal, right? $24 million a year. Kyler Gordon is one of the best players in this Bears defense this past season. And if you could lock him in for $10 million a year, that would be making him one of the highest paid slot cornerbacks in football. But it's still feels like a really great deal for this Bears team. If you paid him $10 million a year on a new contract, he would still be the Bears' sixth highest paid player. He'd make, that's in terms of, I guess, salary cap number. I should look at per year average, but Cole Kmet's going to make $11 million this year. DeAndre Swift is going to make $9 million this year. So he gets slightly more than Swift, slightly less than Cole Kmet in terms of what those cap numbers look like for these teams, for these players. Let's see. In terms of average per year, it would be 1, 2, 3. Well, this includes this season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He'd be the seventh highest paid Bear in terms of average salary per year, just ahead of Caleb Williams, just behind Cole Kmet. Seventh highest paid player for one of your best defensive players in the slot there. Kyler Gordon is absolutely worth that $10 million. And if you can get him for less, if you can say, well, Kyler, you're very good, but you're not the best slot cornerback in football. Can we do $9 million a year, $8 million a year? I feel like greedy even saying it, but that's a great spot for the Bears to be in. Lock Kyler Gordon up at this affordable number for a long time. And then, if you really want to play with it, you could move him back to the outside in a year or two. If you really wanted to, you could draft a slot cornerback, move Kyler Gordon back to the outside. I think he'd still play well as an outside cornerback, even in Dennis Allen's defense. And you'd be getting high-level outside cornerback play for a fraction of the outside cornerback cost. That, to me, seems like a dream come true. Lock him in before other cornerbacks start getting bigger contracts this offseason and start raising the market rate. If you're the first one to give the extension, it's going to be the lowest number on the extension. I'm all for locking up Kyler Gordon ASAP. Now, also in the secondary, Jaquan Brisker is entering the final year of his rookie contract. And when Jaquan Brisker has been healthy, he's been a very positive player on this team who makes a big difference on the back end, has some versatility there, more of a strong safety in the box, but can cover deep. But concussion as a rookie, misses a game. Concussion as a sophomore player, misses a couple of games that season. And now last year only played in 5 games and missed most of the season because of yet another concussion. And it starts to enter the Tua Tagovailoa conversation of do you give this player a massive long-term contract extension if you're not sure what the next concussion might be and how significant that could be and how long it might keep him out and what actually his health status is. So I certainly don't expect Ryan Poles to give Jaquan Brisker a contract extension this offseason. I think it's kind of a Tevin Jenkins situation where you let him play the last year of his rookie contract and try and prove to you that he can stay more healthy. And obviously the Bears have a lot more of the medical information than we do as far as what the level of concern should or shouldn't be about Brisker, but it's very real for us on the outside. I have to imagine it's very real for them on the inside. So I don't think there's a rush to have to go in and pay Jaquan Brisker. It just gets complicated because Kevin Byard is also entering the last year of his deal, and he's an older player. So if you let Jaquan Brisker go next year and you let Kevin Byard go next year, then you're going to need 2 new safeties. So you could cut Kevin Byard this year as a salary cap casualty, replace him this year, and then next year replace Brisker and only have to replace 1 safety at a time. But it's a tricky proposition for the Bears on the back end there because you just don't know exactly what you're going to get with Brisker health-wise. And it's one of those where I think you're just going to kind of have to let that one play out. I think there's a similar conversation coming at some other spots on the roster where you've got guys who you could give contract extensions to, but you might want to see a little bit more. But you've got other players at their same position that are entering contract years and question marks about what the future is going to look at a few of those spots. So we'll look at both linebackers, TJ Edmunds and TJ Edwards, before we look at a couple guys in the trenches in Braxton Jones and Andrew Billings next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by PrizePicks. Football season may be over, but basketball is in full swing, and there's no better way to stay in the game than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on at least two players' stat projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's a lot of fun. Maybe you want to look at Jason Tatum scoring more than 29 points or whatever the number is going to be for each individual game. You pick your favorite players in your favorite team. Luka Doncic debuting for the Lakers. However you want to do it, PrizePicks makes it quick and easy. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and their fast and secure withdrawals mean you can get your winnings in as little as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for an instant $50 with your first $5 lineup at PrizePicks. Run your game. Kyler Gordon seems like an easy choice here. Jaquan Brisker also seems like an easy choice to not give him a big contract extension. I think it should also be an easy choice to extend linebacker TJ Edwards. He's been such a solid player for this team, and much like Kyler Gordon, he should remain fairly affordable. We're not talking about giving this player a top-of-the-market extension to become, one of the highest-paid players at his position. He exists right in this nice sweet spot where, he's very good, and you can give him a raise and still feel like you're getting good value out of it, that he's not breaking the bank for the quality of play that you're getting. You're getting a better player, I think, than even a brand new contract would suggest for TJ Edwards. Because, again, no one's going to confuse TJ Edwards for the best linebacker in the NFL. And, he has some limitations physically, right? He's not the fastest guy on the field. And sometimes, if he gets matched up on a wide receiver, even in zone coverage going across the middle of the field, he's not going to be able to keep up with that player. But how many linebackers truly can? Well, only a handful, and those are the guys who get the really big contracts. So to me, Edwards is such a solid player, really good in the running game in particular, can take on blocks. He's a guy who has flashed as a blitzer as well. He's certainly never going to be confused as an elite guy in coverage, but he's got the instincts. He's a leader. He's just everything you want in a linebacker on your team. And this upcoming season will be the last year of the contract he originally signed with the Bears as a free agent. I think it was 3 years, $19.5 million. He's all in all turned out to be a really, really solid signing for Ryan Poles. The slightly tricky part with him, I guess, is age. He's 29, and I believe he turns 30, or excuse me, he turns 29 in August, so he's 28 now. But so you're not going to lock in TJ Edwards for 5 more years until he's age 34. But to me, if TJ Edwards is going to be 29 this season, you can give him another 2 or 3 years on a contract. He'll still be able to play well when he's 30, 31 into 32. Maybe at 32, 33, that's when you start to expect a little bit more of a drop-off there. But again, this is not a player who's relying on his physical tools as much. He's not relying on speed in the way that he's going to slow down as he gets older and then get worse. Speed's not already what he's relying on, right? It's the instincts, it's the physicality, it's the smarts, it's the savvy. And that tends to age better than the freak athletes who eventually slow down as father time catches up to them. TJ Edwards will probably be the same guy 4 years from now, or pretty close to the same guy 3 or 4 years from now than what he is right now. And at he's making currently $6.5 million a year. He's not somebody who's going to come in and command a big $20 million contract. This is not the Roquan Smith conversation again. It's a very different one with TJ Edwards. If you look at some of the other linebackers who have gotten contract extensions recently on more of this middle tier, second tier linebacker group, I think that the top end for a TJ Edwards contract would probably be Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from the Cleveland Browns. I think JOK is pretty universally regarded as a better linebacker than TJ Edwards. I still think the Browns got pretty good value there. So I don't think Edwards is going to jump all the way from $6.5 million on his current deal to $12.5 million where JOK is in Cleveland. But you look at other guys. Zaire Franklin from the Colts got just over $10 million a year last year in a contract extension. Earlier this year, or I guess 2024 now, Pete Werner from the Saints got $7.5 million. Zaven Collins from the Cardinals a couple years ago got $7 million a year. That to me feels like where TJ Edwards is, right? You're going to pay him more than the 6.5 a year he's on his current contract. But you're not going to double it or jump up. You're probably not even going to hit the $10 million a year mark, right? I'm thinking he jumps up to 7.5, maybe even $8 million. Is it 3 years, $24 million on a contract extension? Something along those lines. 3 years, 23, 3 years, 22, right? Something where it's a pay raise and a nice signing bonus or whatever to reward him for, hey, you came to Chicago, you've played well, you've been through some bad seasons, but life should be better moving forward with different coach and, better quarterback play and all that stuff. Like, here you go. We want to keep you around and reward you for the play that you've made. But hey, we're not going to go crazy here and pay you $10, $11, $12 million. Just get him in the 7-8 range. Feels like a nice, happy place where he can be rewarded and his agent can be comfortable. Like, this doesn't need to be a difficult negotiation where Ryan Poles and him are butting heads about how much he's worth. Like, this is a couple of $1 million difference from what he's currently making. That shouldn't be a big deal, as opposed to like the Jalen Johnson contract last year when you go from rookie deal to $19 million a year. That one's a little bit more contentious and a little bit more to disagree about here. But something like Edwards should be more manageable, because even at $7 or $8 million a year, like, that feels like the quality of linebacker play you're getting from TJ Edwards. You're not getting a $20 million a year linebacker out of him, but you're only going to pay him $7-8 million. That feels like pretty good value. Like, you're paying DeMarcus Walker $7 million a year. You're paying Kevin Byard $7.5 million a year. You're paying DeAndre Swift $8 million a year. TJ Edwards feels like he's in that tier of players. Like, it makes it so much easier when a player who needs a new contract is like playing up to that new contract and he's not looking for some huge pay raise to reset the market. These middle of the line deals feel a lot less painful to just, yes, give him the deal, pay him some money. What makes this interesting for me, though, is what we end up doing with Tremaine Edmunds then, because Edmunds has one more additional year on his contract beyond where Edwards is, right? So Edwards will be a free agent in 2026. Edmunds will be a free agent in 2027. And Tremaine Edmunds remains, I think, the third highest paid linebacker in the NFL on a per year basis. His contract the Bears gave him was $18 million a year. His cap hit's slightly lower than that because they paid some of that extra in 2024. But nonetheless, Tremaine Edmunds is the third highest paid linebacker in football behind Roquan Smith and Fred Warner. I don't think this is a hot take to say Tremaine Edmunds has not played like the third best linebacker in football. He hasn't played like a linebacker who deserves to be the third highest paid linebacker in all of football. He's been very good. And there were some times this season where maybe he wasn't, but over the last couple seasons, he's generally played at a high level. But would you say top 3 linebacker in football? I mean, I suppose Zach Bond from the Eagles is going to hit free agency this year and might jump him and move him down to 4th. And there's some other guys who are going to be in the mix for new contracts here in the near future. But like, I don't want to power rank linebackers in the NFL right now, but between Fred Warner and Roquan Smith, who are already paid above him, Zach Bond, Bobby Wagner had a great year for Washington. Leo Chenal with the Chiefs, he's on a rookie contract. There's some other guys around the NFL. Jack Campbell in Detroit had a really strong season. That players are playing better elsewhere than Tremaine Edmunds, and you just start to wonder, okay, is he someone who's going to be worth paying $17 million to next year? Probably for 2025, absolutely, but then 2026. The Bears could get out of his contract after next season and save 15 of that $17 million. I could see Tremaine Edmunds being a salary cap casualty after this upcoming season. It's a lot of money to pay for a linebacker that hasn't necessarily been playing that elite level of linebacker play. Very good linebacker play, but as the third highest paid linebacker in football, you're not getting third best linebacker play from Tremaine Edmunds. Now, perhaps Dennis Allen's defense has the potential to unlock more from Edmunds and have him play like Demario Davis. And then all of a sudden, Tremaine Edmunds is well worth keeping around and well worth that salary, but we're going to need to see him take a step forward in Dennis Allen's defense or risk being that salary cap casualty in 2026. That's where you could see with Edmunds entering free agency and Edwards entering free agency, Edmunds entering the last year of his deal, 2025 could be the last year of TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmunds as your 2 Chicago Bears starting linebackers. Either you let Edwards go because he's going to be a free agent, or you let Edmunds go because he's not living up to his contract. I mean, I guess there's a possibility you extend Edwards and keep them both for 2 more seasons, but it's going to take it's a little bit of a prove it year from Tremaine Edmunds. Not prove that you're a good linebacker, prove that you're the third best linebacker in football. Prove that you're worth the third highest paid contract for a linebacker in football. Because the Bears might find after this season, you're a very good player, but you're not an $18 million a year player, and they'd be better off saving 15 by cutting him, replacing him for somebody for half that price who's going to give you close to that play. Or certainly if you draft a linebacker this year in the draft and develop them, maybe in the second round or third round, draft a linebacker, keep him on the bench and be ready to take over. Like the Bears have some flexibility and some options here at the linebacker position, and they're not locked into Tremaine Edmunds beyond 2025. So something to keep on the radar and on the horizon here for how this Bears linebacking core may change in the future. A couple other contract extension players who are eligible this year that I think are interesting case studies to dive in a little bit closer. Braxton Jones at left tackle and Andrew Billings at nose tackle for two very different reasons and very different sets of circumstances, but I want to talk about next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss that opening tip-off, or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for an even bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. The live betting feature keeps every moment of a game exciting. Whether your team has fallen behind early or you're riding the high of victory for 4 quarters, if there's a clutch 3 or a free throw you need to see hit, you never can feel like you're going to miss your chance with the FanDuel app. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I don't think you're going to hear too many Chicago Bears fans clamoring for left tackle Braxton Jones to get a contract extension this offseason. But I think it's at least worth a brief conversation. Yes, we need to see this Bears offensive line continue to get better. And the Bears absolutely should explore more competition at left tackle, should explore upgrading the left tackle position. However, and I think this is the caveat I want to throw here, is like, I'm not, in no way should they give the Braxton Jones a contract extension right now. But if you get through free agency and you get through the NFL draft and you never really quite find that left tackle upgrade that fits, whether it's in free agency and the price isn't right, or there's just not a guy who's a good scheme fit for what you like, and none of the free agent left tackles really fit where you're trying to build this team. And you go into the draft, and in the first round there's a pass rusher, second round there's a linebacker and a guard, and third round there's a running back, and all of a sudden it just didn't work out. You can't force a left tackle to appear, right? You can't just say we're going to find an upgrade and pull him right. Like, there has to be that upgrade out there for you to sign or draft, and it has to align with where your team building priorities are in that moment, what your salary cap space is, where your draft capital is, etc. And there's a possibility that you go through this offseason and that left tackle upgrade just doesn't present itself in a way that makes the most sense for the Bears. And so you finish the draft and your left tackles are Braxton Jones and Karan Amagaji. At that point then, if you're essentially saying we're not upgrading left tackle's position, we just have to roll with Braxton Jones and Karan Amagaji, do you consider the possibility of saying, well, you could save a lot of money trying to give him a contract extension now? This doesn't have to be a 5-year mega deal that's going to give him $20 million a year. But if Ryan Poles looks at this Bears team, the Bears offensive line, and looks at Braxton Jones, watches the tape and says, we think he's good enough, and especially with a new offensive line coach, we think he's already where we want him to be and he can get even better, why let him play through that last year of his rookie contract and hit free agency and potentially get even more money then, as opposed to being able to lock him up early and keep him on a cheap deal, right? This, of course, hinges on that evaluation of Braxton Jones from Ryan Poles being something that he doesn't, that he's comfortable sticking with for a few more years. I think Braxton Jones is underrated among Chicago Bears fans, but doesn't mean he's an elite left tackle either. I think he's better than he gets credit for, but also someone you can do better than. But I just feel like this Bears offensive line has not been well coached for the last season. I think we've seen Braxton Jones get incrementally better over time. He's a young player. He's going to keep getting better. He's got all the physical tools that you like at the left tackle spot. He's been relatively durable and reliable for you there. Yes, there's been ups and downs. I'm not here to say, yes, give Braxton Jones some mega contract right now and lock him in. But if you find yourself going through this whole offseason and the other left tackle options don't present themselves, it's something I wonder if the Bears will at least consider whether or not it's worth trying to lock him in for 2 or 3 years on a lower mid-level contract, as opposed to if he comes back this season, year 4, rookie year, and is a stud, right? Offensive line coach coaches him up, and he has the best year of his rookie contract. That price tag is going to go up a lot higher than it's going to be right now, or that it's going to be this summer, right? So if you could lock him in at under $10 million a year on a 2 or 3 year extension, that would be great. Because if he has a great 2025, then you might be looking at 10 plus, 15 plus $million, whatever that might look like on the left tackle market if he truly has that great season. It's sort of a gamble. Like, do you want to let him play it out and risk having to pay more, or do you want to try and lock things in on the shorter term? I certainly think the durability questions, there have been a couple of missed opportunities the last couple of seasons where he's out for a stretch, and that's enough of a scare that I'm not expecting the Bears to do a deal early like this, but I just think it's a guy that Ryan Poles drafted, that Ryan Poles is overseeing the development of, and the Bears might believe in Braxton Jones more than we do, and he is eligible for a contract extension. So that's where I wanted to kind of float that out there. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're better off likely waiting, but it's an interesting financial tool here if they have more belief in him than the rest of the fan base does. Last one quick, Andrew Billings, nose tackle. One of the MVPs of this defense, a huge gap missing when he was injured from that nose tackle spot. The Bears' run defense got worse. He surprised as one of their better pass rushers, especially on the interior this season, and Andrew Billings has kind of become a fan favorite. He's entering the last year of his contract this season. I would like to see Andrew Billings get a contract extension. It'll be affordable. He's not going to get, nose tackles don't get paid that much as is, and he's not going to be the highest paid nose tackle in football. You can pay him a relatively affordable contract here, reward him for how well he's played. The caveat here, twofold. One, he turns 30 in March, so he'll be on the wrong side. I mean, technically on the wrong side of 30, right? He's inching towards the end of his career as opposed to inching towards the prime of his career. I still think Andrew Billings has another good handful of seasons in him, but you're not locking this guy up for 5 years. You're giving him another 2 years, maybe, right? Give him 2 years, $10 million or whatever, I haven't looked at nose tackle contracts, but like his current deal was 2 years, $8 million. How about 2 years, 10? Give him an extra $1 million a year, $5 million. That feels like a fair spot for Andrew Billings for how well he's played. But he is entering the age 30 season, and also he's coming off of a torn pectoral. And that's what throws a wrench in the contract extension. Like, yeah, torn pec's not going to be something that's career-ending, right? In theory, he should recover from that fully and be the same Andrew Billings when he gets back. But, I'm not a doctor. The Bears have a lot more of the medical information there, and they might say, listen, we want to see how you recover from this torn pec, see how training camp goes and everything, and make sure you still seem like the Andrew Billings we thought we were getting. And then maybe by the end of training camp, you can get a deal done. If you feel like everything is where it needs to be in the injury recovery, he's 100% and all that's completely behind him. That's when I think an Andrew Billings deal would be more likely, but probably not going to be this winter or this spring. Summer at the earliest would probably be something you'd look at that, unless the pec heals up early and is good to go and he's 100% and the team is super confident in where the health is there. That's, I think, the one area that might be the possibility there. So keeping an eye on Andrew Billings in the future. Braxton Jones, probably a little bit less so. TJ Edwards, I'm in on. Tremaine Edmunds, we'll see what the long term is there. Kyler Gordon, yes. Jaquan Brisker, wait and see. Let this season play out. So a lot of contracts kind of up in the air here for the Bears. Guys who are under contract, but the future of those contracts, a little bit up in the air. We'll certainly break down any and all big deals the Bears make all offseason with guys under contract, their own upcoming free agents that we'll break down here, or certainly when free agency starts a month away, outside free agents the Bears sign. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen, check out Locked On NFL. Comes out twice a day with Tyler Rowland in the morning and Tony Wiggins in the afternoon. For all things NFL wide, I guest host with Tyler Rowland every Tuesday morning. And this week we talked about the Patrick Mahomes GOAT conversation and how let's not overreact to one lost Super Bowl. We talked about how sustainable the Eagles' success is and who might be up next to try and unseat the Eagles as Super Bowl champions. Some more football talk on Locked On NFL. Coming back tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Bears and another opportunity to bear down.